Sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The fourth heat wave of the summer is well underway, turning quite warm and muggy overnight, which could lead to a risk of thunder across parts of England and Wales. But for the majority, it should remain mostly settled. That's all thanks to high pressure situated to the east of the country, but where we see this frontal system lie across the far Scotland, more cloud here, some outbreaks of rain eventually pushing northeastwards into the Northern Isles. But it's this area across this south slowly edging its way northeastwards across Wales and central parts of England through the early hours of the morning. This is a chance where we could potentially hear some rumbles of thunder overnight. But tonight it is set to be particularly warm and muggy, especially across this south. Some towns and cities not dropping much past 18, possibly even 19 degrees Celsius. So a little bit uncomfortable for some. And then during the early hours of the morning, we'll still see some quite blustery outbreaks of rain across the far north of Scotland. But mainland Scotland should mostly be dry and bright overnight. We could start to see some of those heavy thundery showers pushing through into Northern Ireland and northern parts of England during the very early hours. But across the south, it should start to brighten up. But we could see some remnants of cloud across central areas for a time, eventually clearing away as those thundery showers continue to push their way northwards. And by the afternoon in particular, there should be plenty of blue skies, but once again some quite hot temperatures, a little warmer compared to this afternoon, particularly across central areas of England where we could start to see temperatures push into the mid-30s, but even across the north, even where we see those cloudier skies, still temperatures in the mid-20s. So it's going to be a hot, if not very hot day for many. And then through into Wednesday, the middle part of the week, fairly similar conditions. There are still a risk of showers, northeastern parts of Scotland. Later on across southern England, there is a chance of hearing some rumbles of thunder, but for many areas, once again, plenty of fine and dry weather. But from Wednesday onwards, we'll start to see a slight decrease in those temperatures. Nevertheless, though, it is going to continue to feel warm in that sunshine.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 3 weeks to see how you can win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very good evening to you. It's 8 o'clock on Monday, the 11th of August. My name's Tom Harwood, and tonight I'm identifying as the inimitable Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Well, tonight the lights are flashing red on the Chancellor's dashboard. As it is revealed, new hiring slumped in July. The steep decline in appointments is the latest in a string of bad economic news. With growth down, inflation up, and now the jobs market in turmoil, Britain is in the red. Elsewhere, the Education Secretary admits that there's a generation of white working-class children in Britain being written off by society. She vows new measures to tackle the problem. But with so many expanding programmes and quotas for ethnic minority children, will it be too little too late for the white working classes? And next, Nigel Farage's party launched their Women for Reform campaign today, vowing to rid Britain of its soft-touch approach to crime, which they argue is making women, girls and mothers unsafe in their own country. But can reform overcome its blokey image to win over the women of Britain? And don't miss, a Labour peer calls for the Clive of India statue outside the Foreign Office to be pulled down on the grounds that it harms our relationship with our former colony. But is erasing the past really ever the solution? And also, for those of you who are watching on Thursday,
come up to me and say, are you still Jacob Rees-Mogg? And what is the state of the nation? You may win this mug.
Yes, Jacob himself will reveal the winner of this coveted prize shortly. The State of the Nation starts now. Well, throughout the show tonight, I'll also be joined by my panel, the former Labour MP Stephen Pound and the former Conservative MP and Minister Sir John Redwood. As ever, do let me know your views. gbnews.com/your say. We'll be coming to some of those throughout the programme. But now it's time for your latest news bulletin with Katie Bowen.
Tom, thank you and good evening. The headlines at 2 minutes past 8. A fresh government effort to deport foreign national offenders is the sort of stuff that they should have been doing on day one. That's according to the leader of the opposition. Kemi Badenoch made the comments as more foreign criminals will be deported before their appeals are heard, as the Home Office adds 15 new countries to its Deport Now, Appeal Later scheme. Canada, India and Australia are among the new additions, taking the total to 23, with Home Secretary Yvette Cooper vowing to stop offenders exploiting our immigration system and fast-track removals. Also today, Kemi Badenoch has suggested migrants currently housed in hotels could instead be held in camps, as the number of migrants who have crossed the English Channel since Sir Keir Starmer took office nears 50,000. US President Donald Trump says that he will tell Vladimir Putin to end his war in Ukraine during his meeting with the Russian leader on Friday. The president described Friday's meeting as a feel-out meeting. He added that some land swapping will happen for the good of both Ukraine and Russia. The president went on to say that he wants to set up a meeting between Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, saying that he would try to get some territory back for Ukraine. President Trump said it was not up to him to make a deal, as President Zelensky has said tonight that Ukrainian intelligence shows that Putin has no plans to end the war.
But I'll be speaking to Zelensky. The next meeting will be with Zelensky and Putin, or Zelensky and Putin and me. I'll be there if they need, but I want to have a meeting set up between the two leaders. I was a little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap, because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody, to the good, for the good of Ukraine. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both.
Well, the president made those comments during a press conference where he announced that he's deploying National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. as part of his plan to, quote, rescue the capital city from crime. The president declared it Liberation Day for Washington, D.C., saying the city will be cleared up very quickly. During the president's announcement, members of the Free D.C. organisation held a rally outside the White House against the measures. 3 teenagers have been arrested over the murder of a man at a seaside resort. Kent police said the man in his 40s died after being attacked during an altercation on the Isle of Sheppey on the North Kent coast. A police cordon has been set up in a large clearing behind the beach in the Laysdown-on-Sea resort. 2 boys aged 14 and 15 and a 16-year-old girl are being questioned over his murder. And detectives investigating a major fire which destroyed a historic former hotel in Worcestershire have arrested 2 girls. West Mercia Police said that the 13 and 14-year-old had both been released on bail as part of its inquiry into damage caused to the Grade 2 listed Raven Hotel in Droitwich Spa. Hereford and Worcester Fire and Rescue Service said 8 fire engines and multiple specialist vehicles were deployed to tackle the fire, which did not lead to any casualties but totally destroyed the building. Officers remain at the scene, and the force said, and are asking people to stay away from the area at this time. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Tom.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Good evening. This is State of the Nation. Now, the Chancellor's economic dashboard is flashing red. We've seen in recent weeks, despite an interest rate cut, the government's borrowing costs went up. Inflation is up, growth is down, and the government is all at sea. This summer, we've seen the steepest drop in payrolled employment since the pandemic year of 2020. And just today, an influential independent report reveals a, quote, further steep decline in staff appointments in July. The biggest drops in retail and hospitality. The impact of Rachel Reeves's national insurance tax hikes, the incidence of which fell hardest on low-wage employees, of course. The report makes clear that there are global headwinds, of course, but significantly, it points to self-inflicted wounds too. Increased payroll costs, which can be placed squarely at the feet of the Chancellor, have delivered a gut punch to British business. We all know tax rises are coming in the autumn budget. But what this report reveals is how tax rises can contribute to choking off employment and killing off growth. And so we sink deeper into the never-ending doom loop of British economic mismanagement. Higher taxes, less employment, lower growth, more spending demands, less money to pay for them, higher taxes, rinse and repeat. Where the Chancellor has attempted to trim the most meagre of slices of fat from our bloated welfare state, she has failed. Faced with a parliamentary Labour Party which refuses to accept the need for restraint, Rachel Reeves has had to turn to Plan B. She had said in November last year that her previous budget was to be a one-off, a once-in-a-parliament reset, that we're not going to be coming back with more tax increases or indeed more borrowing, that we're never going to need to do a budget like this again. Take a listen.
In terms of whether we'll be doing something similar in the future, no. This was a budget to reset. It means our public finances are now on a firm footing and the trajectory of public spending is much more honest. So we're never going to need to do a budget like this again. This was a once-in-a-parliament reset so that we start on the right foot. And also to give businesses, families and markets confidence that we now do have our public finances on a firm footing.
Well, that was then, and this is now. Was it dishonesty or hubris? Perhaps more of the latter. The growth this government once claimed was their #1 mission is nowhere to be found. Their flagship planning reforms watered down and welfare reform U-turned upon. And yet amidst all the despair, we get denial from Downing Street. A pretence that things are getting better. That long-predicted Bank of England rate cut is to be celebrated. A pretence that the country can see right through. It's a Greek tragedy, and one without any sign of a deus ex machina. The pain has only just begun. Well, that's my rather bleak analysis. As ever, do let me know what you think. Head to gbnews.com/yoursay to get involved. But I'm delighted to now be joined by the Deputy Chief Executive of the Recruitment and Employment Confederation, Kate Shoesmith. Kate, thanks for joining us this evening. Of course, your organisation co-authored this report that does show such dire warning signs for employment in the country. Just briefly, what does it actually say?
What we're looking at is we're looking at what's happened in terms of both permanent job appointments and temporary billing rates over the month just gone. So it's a lead indicator of the jobs market, whereas when you get the labour market stats that come out from the Office for National Statistics, they're always looking back at the quarter just gone. So we're looking specifically at what happened in July. And what we saw is that actually it's been a tough time for the jobs market, and that's been something of a trend for the last couple of years. Actually, that's what's most interesting about the report, is that you can see that there's certain key sectors that have found it really difficult to manage the cost space that's there, and that some of that's a lag from COVID times. Some of that's because of geopolitical pressures. You know, nobody expected what would happen in terms of Russia invading Ukraine and energy price rises. Businesses are still carrying an awful lot of that. The national insurance contribution increase that employers had to face in April didn't help. So we're finding that some businesses, they're holding fire. They're not necessarily hiring right now. What they're telling us, though, is that as they look ahead to the rest of this year, they need to hire, and they're going to. So particularly in key sectors around construction, the infrastructure strategies really help with that. Engineering, they're looking to grow. They're looking to bring in more hires. They need the people with the right skills to do so. That's the key for them.
In some ways, it's a sort of tale of two economies. It's almost less of a marginal cost to take on someone in a more expensive role. But for the people right at the bottom end of the income sort of distribution, for people that work in hospitality, for instance, that national insurance rise has had perhaps the biggest impact.
It's had the impact on the businesses rather than the workers. So it's an employer rise in national insurance contributions. What we have seen...
Of course, the OBR says the incidents fall mainly on the employees.
There is a point that the fact that businesses, it sucks up their available capital. So in terms of them being able to, for instance, add new jobs or give more hours to those workers, or to perhaps do some learning and development with those individuals. A number of businesses said to us that it's been really tough. Take hospitality, really tough environment in terms of price rises, increases, fewer people going out, people holding on to money in their pocket for obvious reasons, because of cost of petrol, for instance. All of those things contribute. So when the business thinks about it, they may not give as many shifts as they did before, or they may think, actually, maybe we won't open as many days as we would have. We'll close a bit earlier just to manage some of those cost bases. And that's what we're seeing. When that turns, it will come back quickly. That's what often happens with retail and hospitality jobs. But we need that oomph, and we need that incentive to do so. And that's what businesses are really looking for right now.
Well, let's hope something comes along at the end of the tunnel. But Kate Shoesmith, thanks so much for joining us, Deputy Chief Executive of the Recruitment and Employment Confederation. Well, now let's go to my panel, the former Labour MP Stephen Pound and the former Conservative MP and Cabinet Minister Sir John Redwood. Stephen, this is not looking good for the Chancellor. She said she wanted to raise taxes once and only once. And she's going to have to do it all over again.
We don't know that. I mean, I have to say, on your introduction, the fact that you're talking about a Greek tragedy and putting in Latin tax makes you think Jacob Rees-Mogg never went away. But, I mean, there's obviously something about that chair. But
well, I am identifying.
Indeed. But look, John and I are both in this strange position of having to employ people in our previous jobs. A bizarre thing about being MPs. And you never take anybody on in July. You just don't do it, because who's going to take somebody on for August and September? The employment figures for the autumn will be the interesting ones. But look, except in one particular area, which is particularly hospitality. But look, when we left the European Union, there's going to be the opportunity for British workers to actually do British jobs. And yet, why aren't the British workers filling these? Everywhere I go, I have to say, occasionally I do pop into a pub round my way, and every pub I go to has a sign, staff wanted, every cafe.
Stephen, I think you might be slightly out of date, because I do remember when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, he used to boast of 1 million job vacancies across the country. But this report today is saying that we've got the fewest job vacancies since the time of the pandemic.
I don't know. I mean, we're concentrating concentrating largely on two sectors. Well, one is house building, which we're talking about, and we've got a real skills shortage. There's no question about that. But in hospitality, there is actually a huge deficit in terms of people coming to work there. And I think you said the other day, 1 in 4 people in this country is on the sick. I mean, I think that's the problem. It's the problem of low productivity and low activity in the jobs market.
Well, let's turn to Sir John Redwood now, because to some extent, I do feel a little sorry for the Chancellor. When it comes to the people who are taking disability benefit and all the like of it, she did have a plan to reform that. She put that plan before Parliament, and before it came to a vote, she had to gut half of it because the Labour backbenchers weren't having it. She's had to go back to Plan B now, which is tax rises rather than spending cuts.
Well, you were right in your great analysis, and I've got no sympathy for her political incompetence. I mean, she lost the confidence of the Prime Minister even. I mean, I think the Prime Minister behaved very badly to her in that famous set of exchanges when she broke down, and he was totally insensitive to the pressure on his Chancellor. So there is clearly trouble at the top of the Labour Party over the economic strategy. But they should be having a row about it, because it's a disaster. And what the numbers for jobs and vacancies show is that until the last general election, there had been great job growth post the COVID disaster, and there had been a big reduction in unemployment, 7.8% unemployment at the start of the Conservative years, 4.2% by the end of the Conservative years. It's been going up every month in the last 6 months or more under this Labour government, and the vacancies have been collapsing, as you rightly said. And that is their policy. It was, first of all, the threat of taxes that business didn't want in the run-up to the budget, and then it was a whole load of taxes on business, not just the national insurance, so that was the biggest one, but also the taxes that hit small business and working farms and so forth. And it collapsed the mood, it collapsed confidence. And I feel very sorry for the hospitality industry because its confidence was knocked out by the higher taxes, and its cost base was wrecked by the higher taxes, and so they literally cannot afford to employ the staff, so then they can't guarantee the really good service and the longer opening hours that people might want.
Now, to be fair, every country in this part of the world has seen its growth forecasts slashed over the course of the last 12 months. You could argue that every ship in the convoy is sailing into the squalls together. Is that an argument in favour of the government? They can say, quite rightly, that a lot of countries are having a torrid time of it.
But that's not just true. I mean, Chinese growth is actually up. It had been pretty disappointing. Indian growth is very good. American growth is an awful lot better than UK and European, although people try to talk it down. It's true the European Union's been making a mess as well, but the whole point of being out of Europe is we want to do better than that, and we don't have to follow their own silly policies. It's this government who think we need to link in to the slowest growing part of the advanced world.
Well, the oldest argument in economics, in macroeconomics, is, the idea you tax less, you get more growth. And, that's tried over and over again. And that's basically what brought down Liz Truss. And I think
that works. It's true.
Where?
It's the low tax.
I'm sorry, Scandinavia.
Well, it's the Singapores, it's the Hong Kongs, it's the Americas that are doing so much better than Europe and the UK.
You talk to the Far East.
You've got to live in the real world.
But what about Sweden?
Our best entrepreneurs and wealthy people are all going there.
But you admit that there was a fundamental error in what Liz Truss tried to do, which was at the same time as cutting taxes, she was increasing spending.
Well, the fundamental error was that the Bank of England decided that very moment to sell an enormous amount of bonds and put interest rates through the roof. Of course, that wasn't helpful.
Well, it added to the conflagration,
but there was nothing wrong with the idea of the tax cuts, and if we adopted those tax cuts now and balanced them with spending reductions, our economy would do extremely well.
And the problem is, every single voter in this country does want a tax cut, but they also want spending to rise.
I know, exactly so. But look, I mean, I think one of the things, Sir John knows more about this than I do, but one of the most terrifying things about the British economy is how much we're in thrall to the international bond markets, and particularly the people like Moody's and the people.
Well, that's what happened.
Yeah, but they only go against you if you run a lousy policy.
Well,
the bond market's nothing to be afraid of if you do a good job.
And also, you don't have to be afraid of the bond markets if you're not so heavily indebted.
Well, no, the ratings agency actually threw a panic when they thought that Rachel Reeves was going to go. They're actually supporting her. But look, what you said right at the beginning is that, I love your metaphors about, all the ships sailing into the squall. I think you're absolutely right.
But not every ship is in the same dilapidated condition. I'm going to have to
And it
pause
doesn't
here
have the same
because
weather
there is
either.
much more to discuss.
Look
Coming
at
up
Greece,
next,
Greece and Italy.
The Education Secretary admits there is a generation of white working-class children in Britain being written off by society. She vows new measures to tackle the problem. But with so many expanding programmes and quotas for ethnic minority children, will it be too little, too late for the white working classes? That next.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Our reporter Anna Riley is in Ilkley. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hey, by gum, what accents you've got there this morning. Happy Yorkshire Day and welcome to Ilkley. It certainly is God's own country, is Yorkshire. Absolutely splendid place, and of course we're so proud of our culture. We've got our own language, we've got our own sayings, and it's just a beautiful part of the world. Celebrated every year on the 1st of August. It's arranged by the Yorkshire Society, and it's all about celebrating our heritage, and it's going to be great for businesses as well as the town here today. We're going to have a procession of mayors coming through later this morning, the largest gathering of civic mayors in the world, and we're going to hear the town crier and also on Ilkley Moor bar taps, which means on Ilkley Moor without your hats. The unofficial anthem of Yorkshire is going to be sung. We're joined this morning now by Joe Smith. He's the retail manager of Lishman's of Ilkley, and of course a butcher with a pork pie. Good morning. Good morning. Tell us about Yorkshire Day and what it means to you.
So Yorkshire Day for us is very good for the business and all the local authorities. It brings all people down to the shop celebrating Yorkshire Day. I think today will especially be great.
What is it about Yorkshire folk and about the countryside that we've got here as well, the moors, and what do you think draws people here?
Well, it's just the natural beauty, and it's away from everything. You know, we're not in the city, we're in a really nice kind of area.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Some breaking news to bring you now on the Channel migrant crisis. Let's go straight to our GB News Home and Security editor, Mark White.
Well, GB News can confirm that 50,000 small boat migrants have now crossed the English Channel since Sir Keir Starmer came to power. That is, without doubt, a grim milestone, a phenomenal figure when you consider that the Labour government has only been in office just over 13 months. But 50,000 was reached today when 430 additional small boat migrants crossed the English Channel. There is no doubt that this is a significant blow for the government in terms of its PR strategy. It has been telling anyone who will listen that the smash the gangs policy under the new Border Security Command will pay dividends. In recent months, we've heard a slight softening of the message in terms of Labour saying that it's going to take time. You have to give all of the measures that we're implementing some time to bed in. Now, the most significant of those measures, it could be argued, came into force just last Wednesday with that partial returns deal, an historic deal signed between the UK and France, where France, for the very first time outside of Brexit, would take migrants back who crossed crossed the English Channel in small boats. However, since that deal was signed last Wednesday, we can also now reveal that 1,500 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel illegally since last Wednesday. So all of the numbers are going in completely the wrong direction for the year so far. Just a couple of days after I broke the fact that we had now passed 26,000 small boat migrants for this year so far, we are now just about half a dozen or so away from 27,000. You can see, Tom, how very quickly the numbers are ticking up here, and we are on course within the next 5 to 6 weeks to beat the 36,000 total of last year, and potentially even pass the record year of 2022 when more than 46,000 migrants crossed the Channel.
So this on course to perhaps be the largest year of small boats coming across the English Channel since this crisis began. The largest number of unwanted boats coming across the Channel since probably 1066.
Well, there's no doubt that it is clearly unwanted as far as the vast majority of people in this country, is concerned. It has become an issue that was certainly a topic that was discussed a few years ago and was, an irritation for many, to effectively, for most people now, the number one topic of concern because of all of the knock-on effects that those coming across the Channel have. We can see it every day in the renewed hotel protests that are taking place outside asylum seeker hotels that have been linked to a number of allegations of criminality, and the tensions just continue to grow in communities right across the country. The government is alive to that. That's why they're looking at deals with other countries around the world, why they signed and now have operationalised this deal with France for a returns deal. But, there are lots of potential issues and sort of solutions, but not solutions in the sense that they are all a microcosm of what is actually required to really have any meaningful impact on the numbers coming across the Channel. The government is hopeful, as I say, given time, that it will have an effect. But so far, 13 months in to a Labour government, the shocking statistic tonight that we can reveal is that 50,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel under Sir Keir Starmer.
Just astonishing news. Mark White, thank you very much for bringing us that GB News exclusive this evening. Well, let's get some reaction now from Stephen Pounds. This is a dire milestone.
It's horrific, absolutely no question about that. But look, if you look at the European country, which has traditionally taken more migrants than any other and welcomed them, that's Germany. Germany under Merz, whose own ratings are about similar to our Prime Minister's ratings in this country, they've closed their borders. They've decided enough is enough. So let's actually say there's something happening within the Labour Party. Traditionally, and I think probably for quite noble reasons, there's a kind of internationalism within the Labour Party about, we welcome people. And we were a bit squeamish about thinking about deporting, about sending people back and, putting up the barriers. But that has happened. This has changed now. This has absolutely changed. I can detect within the Labour Party now, there's almost overwhelming the fact we simply cannot go on like this.
And yet, this scheme that has been negotiated with France, Sir John Redwood,
well, it's something.
It's going to send back 50 a week, we're told. Judging by what Mark White was just telling us, the last 6 days, just over 1,500 people coming across. So we're going to send back 3% of them.
Well, we said at the time it can't possibly work. It won't be a sufficient deterrent. And, of course, it's not a net 50 because you take 50 back the other way and you have no control over who you take, whereas the French have every control over whether they will take the 50 you nominate. And We've had a week of this now. There's no deterrent effect whatsoever. There's no proper statement from the government about how many and who will be leaving. Why can't they get on with it? Because if it's going to have a deterrent effect, you've got to advertise it. And as people pointed out at the time, it'd be such a small percentage that were at risk of being sent back that people will say, well, if I got a 96% chance of getting away with this, I will. And if I don't get away with it, I might be able to do it all again anyway.
Well, we do process them. I mean, the thing about this is there are certain people, and I think they're entitled to come to this country. I think we want to get them here and paying tax and reunited with the family. That they are being processed in France. There's no question at all about that. But look, this is the early stages.
They're the ones you say that are legal entrants, but an awful lot of these people are not legal entrants.
I know, but we're talking about illegals out, legals
to decide early that they're not suitable.
But this is only day one.
Send them back. And you say that the Labour Party now wants to do this. Well, the government shows absolutely no capability of doing it, and they actually changed some of the sensible legal changes the last Tory government rather late in the day made back again, so they were actually making it worse.
Well, we're going to have to pause this conversation here, but there is so much more to discuss. Thank you for joining in on that breaking news there. Just to repeat,
and congratulations to GB News again
for getting that. We've got our fantastic producer down there on the English, just looking out across Dover and physically counting those people as they come in. We get there ahead of the government,
looking out for William the Conqueror.
Well, Stephen Pound and Sir John Redwood, thank you very much indeed. Coming up next, Nigel Farage's party launches their Women for Reform campaign today, vowing to rid Britain of its soft-touch approach to crime, which they argue is making women, girls and mothers unsafe in their own country. Can Reform overcome their blokey image to win over the women of Britain? I'll be asking the one and only Maggie Oliver in just a moment.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello, the heat wave continues across much of Europe. Plenty of hot sunshine to come. Could trigger one or two thunderstorms in places, particularly during the evening and overnight periods, but plenty of sunshine to come by day. Eastern Mediterranean temperatures reaching the mid to high 30s in places. One or two showers possible across Spain and Portugal inland, but coastal stretches temperatures well above average in that sunshine. And it remains hot and sunny for the rest of the week, temperatures above average.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The fourth heat wave of the summer is well underway, turning quite warm and muggy overnight, which could lead to a risk of thunder across parts of England and Wales. But for the majority, it should remain mostly settled. That's all thanks to high pressure situated to the east of the country, but where we see this frontal system lie across the far north of Scotland. More cloud here, some outbreaks of rain eventually pushing northeastwards into the Northern Isles. But it's this area across this south slowly edging its way northeastwards across Wales and central parts of England through the early hours of the morning. This is a chance where we could potentially hear some rumbles of thunder overnight. But tonight it is set to be particularly warm and muggy, especially across the south. Some towns and cities not dropping much past 18, possibly even 19 degrees Celsius. So a little bit uncomfortable for some. And then during the early hours of the morning, we'll still see some quite blustery outbreaks of rain across the far north of Scotland. But mainland Scotland should mostly be dry and bright overnight. We could start to see some of those heavy thundery showers pushing through into Northern Ireland and northern parts of England during the very early hours, but across the south it should start to brighten up. But we could see some remnants of cloud across central areas for a time, eventually clearing away as those thundery showers continue to push their way northwards. And by the afternoon in particular, there should be plenty of blue skies, but once again some quite hot temperatures, a little warmer compared to this afternoon, particularly across central areas of England, where we could start to see temperatures push into the mid-30s. But even across the north, even where we see those cloudier skies, still temperatures in the mid-20s. So it's going to be a hot, if not very hot day for many. And then through into Wednesday, the middle part of the week, fairly similar conditions. There are still a risk of showers, northeastern parts of Scotland. Later on across southern England, there is a chance of hearing some rumbles of thunder. But for many areas, once again, plenty of fine and dry weather. But from Wednesday onwards, we'll start to see a slight decrease in those temperatures. Nevertheless, though, it is going to continue to feel warm in that sunshine.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, just like week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, this is State of the Nation. Now, today, Reform UK launched their Women for Reform campaign, focusing on challenging lawless Britain and the specific threats facing the security of women and girls. Yeah. Now, dubbed Farage's Fillies by Dame Andrea Jenkins, the party's leading women spoke at a conference in London detailing their personal experiences of feeling unsafe as women.
Why are there no more police on our streets? Why isn't there a laser focus on knife crime? Why aren't people in balaclavas searched? Why are foreign rapists not deported?
I don't feel safe. And as a mother, I no longer feel that our children live in a safe, beautiful haven of Britain that I grew up in.
Well, the party highlighted two main issues: indoctrination in schools and the impact of unpoliced crime on women and girls. Citing illegal migration as a key threat to security, Reform's only female MP, Sarah Pochin, said she understood the unrest unfolding across the country over the past few weeks.
It's no wonder that we're seeing mass protests by concerned mothers outside these migrant hotels. Mothers who are afraid for the safety of their daughters. And why wouldn't they be when we hear that these illegal migrants are loitering around schools, around parks, men with deplorable attitudes towards women?
Well, joining me now is the former Detective Constable for Greater Manchester Police, the one and only Maggie Oliver. Maggie, thanks so much for being on the show with us tonight. It has been, of course, famously in this country, a very difficult conversation to have, to even highlight any link at all between migrant communities, ethnicity and different attitudes towards women and girls. Reform is going where few parties have gone before with their press conference today.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Tom. I mean, I've been on this treadmill for 12 years now. And in that time, I have seen the conversation move so that we are now having these conversations. And I think GB News have done an incredible job in opening up these subjects, because they are conversations that we have to have. We find ourselves in this position where safety of women is actually no longer guaranteed on our streets. And I do think that the issue that's been covered in that clip is one of the issues. But I also would widen it way beyond that to say that the criminal justice system in general is really unfit for purpose. You know, the public have lost trust in the authorities to be able to protect them. When we look at the statistics, less than 2 in every reported 100 rapes ever reaches court. That's without all the unreported rapes. So it's no wonder that women feel unsafe on the streets. And I think the solution begins with a conversation, but we need to see action. We need to see investment. We need to see more fully trained, experienced police officers, and we need to regain trust in our public services. So there is a very wide-ranging set of reasons for why we are where we are. And of course, you know, I'm known for speaking out about grooming gangs, and those men are predominantly Pakistani Muslim men. And for, 2-3 decades, we've not even been able to say that, let alone look into the reasons why this has continued to thrive and grow. And as we see unprecedented levels of illegal immigration into the country, with young men predominantly who don't share our value systems, who are young men who treat women like second-class citizens, we are undoubtedly going to see further dangers unless we get a grip of this and we address it by strengthening our criminal justice system, if that makes sense.
No, it certainly does. Maggie Oliver, thank you so much for laying that all out for us. Former Detective Constable for Greater Manchester Police and, of course, campaigner on the grooming gangs issue too. Let's widen this discussion with our former Labour MP Stephen Pound and former Conservative MP and Cabinet Minister Sir John Redwood. Let's start with this issue that Reform is saying, not just on the issue of migration and illegal migration, but also investment. I mean, there is a problem here, which is where on earth are they going to get all the money?
Well, indeed, and if people don't feel safe on the streets, it's terribly worrying and it undermines confidence, which also means there's even less money. But where is Labour going to get the money from? Well, it's got to spend it much more wisely. It doesn't need to give 35 billion to the Chagos Islands, Mauritius. That's a disastrous deal. They've dished out 650 million in the last week for people to buy quite expensive electric cars with a little bit of a discount, and they'll be mainly imported cars. That's madness. And they fritter money, and they need to spend more money on the things that really matter to people. And clearly, proper policing of our streets so that women feel safe should be a fundamental first thing that they want to do. They talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk.
Do you think Reform is tapping into something that people in this country feel, that this sense of sort of social decay, of an uneasiness?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're not currently a nation at ease with ourselves. I don't think anybody can deny that. But I have to say, just going back to the beginning of that, I don't think, this Farage's Phillies bit actually does anybody any favours. We used to have it in the Whip's office back in my day. We had a swear box. If anybody talked about Blair babes, they had to put 50p in that. But
I even heard someone trying to elbow in Cameron's cuties at one point, which really did not...
Let's not go there. Yeah, but look, I think also Sarah Poachin, I'm not entirely with her when she talks about groups of people immigrants hanging around outside schools. We've got plenty of wrong-uns in this country, hanging around outside schools. And the idea that there's that horrible crime is actually solely the province of these illegal immigrants, I think doesn't do anybody any favours.
But communities do have a right to feel that if 300 young men
100%.
are put in an entirely male hotel that is in close proximity to a girls' school, I mean, people have a right to feel aggrieved.
I agree. All the more reason, as I've said dozens of times, I think most people say, we need to process these people immediately, and if they don't have any right to be here, even if it's going to be difficult, because it's going to be damn difficult to send somebody back to Afghanistan or Tehran, but we have to actually... And the sooner we bring in ID cards, the better. We can actually clamp down on illegal working, all these Deliveroo cyclists, people...
Well, they're all meant to have a national insurance number. Why don't we enforce the system we've already got?
Exactly, because nobody has an national insurance card.
Why don't we go around to the hotels and find that they've got these bikes and
well, we actually do. That's
work.
actually happening. It happened on Monday of this week.
Last Monday, after a year or more of watching it all happen? No, it's just not working.
Better late than never.
Shall we get back to the issue of safety here?
Yeah, exactly. Particularly for women.
So, John, it's difficult to talk about, but the statistics do show that people from different nationalities and different cultural backgrounds do have different criminal records and propensity to commit, particularly crime against women and girls in this country. Has that taboo now been broken?
Well, I think we are able to talk about it, and we're gradually extracting a bit of information from the government which has been withholding it. And GB News has been one of the leaders in saying, give us the information. We need an intelligent, moderate, sensible conversation about this. But in answer to Stephen, we just need to concentrate on the people who've lived here all their lives, because they could be committing crimes as well. No. The issue with inviting all the migrants is you don't need to invite more people in. And if some of those are going to become criminals, people will obviously feel really bad about that. They say because they broke into the country illegally anyway, they're going to cost us a a fortune, and if they then commit a crime, it's the final insult, isn't it?
But your thing about the taboo is incredibly important. I mean, I was in the House, as John was, 20 years ago when Anne Cryer, extremely courageous Member of Parliament, raised the question about grooming gangs in Keighley, and as did Sarah Champion in Rotherham. Both of them were excoriated. I mean, they both had I happen to know Anne pretty well, and she had a terrible time. So I think that taboo has been broken. And I think, but that's not the totality of the situation. It's not, the violence against women. I think you think of, Cousins, the police officer, and people like that. There's lots of people who we actually should be clamping down on. And ultimately, we need to be more detection. But ultimately,
you can't be if you don't know who these people are.
Exactly.
Let's
identify them.
Probably don't tell people accurately.
Well, of course, a lot of them throw away their documents, but I think, Stephen, you have a point as well. Let's not talk about this to the exclusion of our own homegrown offenders too. Lots more to discuss, of course, on that one, and of course we'll be talking about it throughout the week here on GB News. But coming up next on this programme, on the State of the Nation, a Labour peer calls for the Clive of India statue outside the Foreign Office to be pulled down on the grounds that it harms our relationship with our former colony of India. But is erasing the past also really the solution? Also...
And say, are you still Jacob Rees-Mogg? And what is the state of the nation? You may win this mug.
Yes, find out the winners of Jacob's competition from the man himself in just a moment.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, welcome back to State of the Nation. Now, a Labour peer has called on the government to remove the statue of Robert Clive, more commonly known as Clive of India, from outside the Foreign Office. Well, Clive of India was a key figure establishing British rule in India, beginning as a clerk in the East India Company, rising to become a very wealthy military commander and playing a key role in driving British expansion across the Indian subcontinent. Many accused him of being responsible for the mishandling of the Bengal famine of 1770, allowing millions to starve to death. But now Baroness Debonair, until the election a member of Keir Starmer's shadow cabinet, says the decorative frieze around the base of the statue shows happy, smiling people really delighted to see him. And that's not historically accurate. It's not helpful for our current relationship with India, and it's deeply unhelpful to see India as a country that Britain civilised. Well, now the question is, good or bad, is it wise to erase parts of our history? I'm delighted to be joined now by the London correspondent for the Indian paper The Tribune, Shyam Bhatia. Shyam, thanks so much for being with us this evening. What do you make of what Baroness Debonair had to say?
Well, I think she's quite right, Tom, as so happens. Why are we celebrating the life of a man who was a mercenary, a thief, and a killer? And as you rightly say, responsible for one of the worst famines that modern India has ever experienced. I mean, should we expect the Germans to put up a statue of Adolf Hitler and expect the British ambassador to Germany walk past that every day and enjoy it?
Are we really comparing Clive of India to Adolf Hitler? Is that not jumping the shark here?
Well, Clive of India was responsible for terrible, terrible atrocities. And remember, Tom, I mean, I don't know if you're a historian, but if you look at the historical records of the time, Parliament in London called him an extremely dangerous and corrupt man. So it's not just us now looking at him retrospectively. In his own lifetime, he was reviled and criticised.
Well, there was a big debate when they were erecting the statue in the first place, but that wasn't over colonialism. That was over whether or not he enriched himself at the cost of the East India Company. But I think there's a bigger question to step back on here. Well, whatever the rights and wrongs of the man, and clearly he was much adored and much reviled in his time. He clearly did bad things, but also he was a successful military commander. I mean, should we also tear down the statues that we have of Oliver Cromwell? Should we tear down the statues of Henry VIII? I mean, all of these people have committed atrocities and done bad things, but they're part of our history. At what point do we declare it is year zero and people can do no wrong?
Well, I think you start with the worst offenders, don't you? I mean, surely that's the answer. And as far as Clive and his like are concerned, I mean, the kinds of things they did are only, they're being misrepresented. What we want is accurate history. It's not a question of celebrating, it's a question of being accurate and getting a holistic picture. I don't think we have. I think the narrative has been wrongly projected, and people like Baroness Debonair are trying to get the balance right.
But who determines what is history? I mean, surely the erection of this statue is to some extent part of the history of this country, understanding the attitudes at the height of empire compared to the attitudes today. Is it not also explaining a bit of our history of that time? Not just what you're describing as correct history, but the entire context of the statue is a part of the history of this country.
Well, let me ask you a question in turn. Should we have statues to slave traders? I thought we'd gone beyond that point. Should we do that? Should we celebrate?
It depends what you mean by a statue of a slave trader. So, for example, people can have democratic decisions over various issues. But when it's someone who has, for example, donated their entire fortune towards an educational institution, are they being venerated for being a slave trader, or are they being venerated for founding a school? I mean, it's not someone being venerated for the evil deeds that they did. Surely we can see that there is good that has come out of some areas as well as evil.
Yes, well, it's like the argument about Bill Archer. Do you know about Bill Archer? I don't know how much you know about modern Indian history yourself. Bill Archer is a curator at the V&A. Bill Archer also served in India, actually quite a successful civil servant. Bill Archer ordered the shooting of 7 young Indian teenage boys because they raised the Indian national flag in a building next to his office. And when the officers shot those boys, they ordered the scooping up their brains and throwing them into dustbins. So what are you suggesting, Tom? Should we have a statue to the late Bill Archer as well, former curator of the V&A? I mean, shouldn't we be a bit more sort of perceptive, a bit more careful about who we venerate and who we
But isn't this the fundamental dichotomy? Of course, we shouldn't erect a statue to someone like that now. But if there's been a statue that has stood for hundreds of years, who are we to tear that down because our morality has shifted? It's shifted clearly in the right direction, and clearly some of these people have done terrible things. But that doesn't mean that we tear down our history. It means we face our history.
It's not our history. We're talking about accurate history. And Tom, please remember what I said. Parliament in the 18th century described Clive as a dangerous man and a corrupt man. So this is not rewriting history.
And indeed, he took his life over all of that. And people can debate his legacy to this day, but it's hard to debate a legacy when there's all sort of physical representations of him torn down. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. We've run to the end of the programme, but Shayan Bhatia, really appreciate you coming on and putting across your point of view. London correspondent for The Tribune, the Indian paper, of course. Well, finally, to all of the loyal State of the Nation viewers, you'll have seen Jacob kick off a little competition last week. Well, some lucky attendees of the Clutton Flower Show were obviously tuned in intently to the State of the Nation on Thursday and indeed won this coveted prize. Let's take a look. Oh, I'm sorry, we can't show that video. We'll put it out across our social media platforms, of course. But, of course, that's it from us on the State of the Nation this evening. Patrick Christys is up next. Patrick, what's on your show?
Yes, OK, well, thank you very much, Tom. Is the law skewed in Britain? We had a bloke who undressed himself and started screaming at passengers on London Underground. A load of blokes there subdued the man. Now they might be arrested for how they responded. That seems very odd. Also, 50,000 illegals have crossed the Channel since Sir Keir Starmer came to power. Mark Wise got the inside scoop and he's live at the top of my show. Got loads more on, but you have to tune in to find out.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The fourth heat wave of the summer is well underway, turning quite warm and muggy overnight, which could lead to a risk of thunder across parts of England and Wales. But for the majority, it should remain mostly settled. That's all thanks to high pressure situated to the east of the country, but where we see this frontal system lie across the far north of Scotland. More cloud here, some outbreaks of rain, eventually pushing northeastwards into the Northern Isles. But it's this area across this south, slowly edging its way northeastwards across Wales and central parts of England through the early hours of the morning. This is a chance where we could potentially hear some rumbles of thunder overnight. But tonight it is set to be particularly warm and muggy, especially across the south. Some towns and cities not dropping much past 18, possibly even 19 degrees Celsius. So a little bit uncomfortable for some. And then during the early hours of the morning, we'll still see some quite blustery outbreaks of rain across the far north of Scotland. But mainland Scotland should mostly be dry and bright overnight. We could start to see some of those heavy thundery showers pushing through into Northern Ireland and northern parts of England during the very early hours. But across the south, it should start to brighten up. But we could see some remnants of cloud across central areas for a time, eventually clearing away as those thundery showers continue to push their way northwards. And by the afternoon in particular, there should be plenty of blue skies. But once again, some quite hot temperatures, a little warmer compared to this afternoon, particularly across central areas of England, where we could start to see temperatures push into the mid-30s. But even across the north, even where we see those cloudier skies, still temperatures in the mid-20s. So it's going to be a hot, if not very hot day for many. And then through into Wednesday, the middle part of the week, fairly similar conditions. There are still a risk of showers, northeastern parts of Scotland. Later on across southern England, there is a chance of hearing some rumbles of thunder. But for many areas, once again, plenty of fine and dry weather. But from Wednesday onwards, we'll start to see a slight decrease in those temperatures. Nevertheless, though, it is going to continue to feel